Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to your local radio show on Saturday morning. I'm your host, Charlie Big Time Daddy Rankemeyer. On this particular Saturday, we are going to discuss two topics briefly, the Great Depression and the New Deal. The first topic I want to touch on is the Great Depression, specifically the causes of the Great Depression. That's why we brought in an expert of the Great Depression, Mary Ann Frost. Mary Ann, how are you this morning? I'm great, Big Time Daddy. Thanks for having me. Our pleasure, Mary Ann. So, tell me about the causes of the Great Depression. Well, there are multiple causes of the Great Depression. The first thing about the Depression is that we must understand a few laws, such as supply and demand. This is a law that says if the supply of the goods increase and if the consumer demand stays the same, then prices will drop. Idea number two is Say's law, which says because of supply and demand, too many goods will never be produced. A third idea is the business cycle, which works hand in hand with supply and demand. But the two concepts that forced the Great Depression are the stock market and joint stock companies. Basically, what happened was in 1929, many stocks were traded. Not many Americans owned stock, but most of them followed the stock market. From 1929 to 1932, many Americans noticed that the stock market was going down, but because of the business cycle, many Americans assumed that it would go back to its normal place and the economy would just be fine. Unfortunately, it didn't. When the Depression hit, nearly all Americans were affected, some more than others. In fact, some Americans were affected so much that they had to live in what they called Hoovervilles, or shantytowns built by the unemployed during the Depression, named after the current president, Herbert Hoover. Many thought Hoover was to blame, and many Americans associated with Hoover with failure. Also, many people were not even able to eat. For example, a school teacher noticed a young Appalachian girl was not looking well and told her to go home and get some food in her. The young girl replied, "I can't. It's my sister's day to eat." This shows just how little some families had. This was not deemed uncommon either. Well, thank you, Mary Ann, for your wonderful insight on that topic. Now we will move on to our next topic, the New Deal, which I happen to be quite the expert on. The New Deal was a series of domestic programs enacted in the United States between 1933 and 1938. A few came later. They included both laws passed by Congress as well as presidential executive orders during the first term of Franklin D. Roosevelt. Within the New Deal, there were three main points. The first was relief, which would bring immediate aid to people who were suffering. The second was called recovery, which would try to bring the economy out of the Depression as quickly and as best as possible. And the third is called reform. This would try to prevent the economy from another Great Depression. What came along with the New Deal, however, was much a criticism. There were two main reasons why the New Deal was criticized so much. The first reason was because the Republicans took too much responsibility for the deal. While the New Deal opened a new door to many people seeking help during the Great Depression, it was highly criticized for two specific reasons. The Republicans saw the New Deal as the government interfering in areas that it shouldn't have been. It took away from projects from private employers because of new programs that were in place, like the AAA. In fact, the government was so involved that many Americans feared that some people would rely too far much on government. On the other side of the table, the New Deal was criticized as not doing enough. The New Deal's main purpose was to put the youth of America to work and often let out minorities such as women, African Americans, and the elderly. Many people call for more programs to a more diverse group of people. The long-term impact of the New Deal was it helped lift America out of the Great Depression. While World War II ultimately lifted the United States out of the Great Depression, the New Deal is often seen as contributing factors. Many New Deal programs are still in use today. Actually, the FDIC and the Tennessee Valley Authority Act are prime examples. Thank you so much for listening to our show this Saturday morning. Have a big time daddy day.